We are all in this together, so let's do this together.
I am a candidate for President of the United States of America.
Today, I announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
We need to create a wave in the rest of the country and bring that wave crashing down on their heads. And I'm here tonight to ask you, will you create that wave with me? Yes!
My daddy ended up as a janitor, but his little girl got the chance to be a public school teacher, a college professor, a United States senator, and a candidate for President of the United States.
America, we will rise. I'm Cory Booker, and I'm running for President of the United States of America.
But if we take these challenges head on, the future is ours.
Those are just some of the candidates running for the highest office in the United States so far. I'm Femi Oke, you're in the stream. With more than 600 days still to go until Election Day in the United States, the list of candidates is growing. There are 10 officially declared candidates, 3 exploratory committees underway, and more than a dozen politicians saying maybe. Donor visits, speeches, interviews, meet and greets are beginning across the country.
I'm Malika Bilad. We'll take a look at the big names, the lesser known ones, and what the issues of 2020 will and should be. Who do you think is the right person to take on U.S. President Trump? Well, today's show was chosen by you from our latest Twitter poll. Our community wanted to know about the 2020 candidates planning to run for the U.S. presidency, so we're going to tell you about them. Weigh in on Twitter at AJStream or join our YouTube chat. With us to discuss the candidates so far, Reena Shah is a Republican strategist and consultant and founder of the Women's Public Leadership Network. Patty Culhane is Al Jazeera correspondent based here in Washington, D.C. And on Skype from New York, Brad Jenkins is a Democratic strategist. Welcome back, all of you, to the show. It's so good to have you back. I want to start with this. And Brad, I'll give this to you because you're a Democratic strategist. Sean Newsom on Twitter says, too many Democrats are declaring. I think they'll all cannibalize each other. So vivid imagery right there. It is a crowded field right now. What do you make of it?
Well, there has to be one, right? So, I disagree. I think that the biggest lesson learned from 2016 is we had too few candidates. We had the establishment candidate and we had the insurgent candidate, and that was pretty much it. And the largest electorate on Election Day in 2016 were people that didn't vote, right? People weren't happy with Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. So I like that we have variety. I like that we have all geographies, all ethnicities, all issues covered. And there's a lot more. There's a lot more candidates that are
I actually think the lesson from 2016 is that the Republicans had too many. And that's how Donald Trump got to be the nominee, because he was over here and they were all over here being normal politicians. So there is a real danger for the Democrats if they repeat what the GOP did in 2016. There just is.
Well, the difference, Patty, is there is no Donald Trump on the Democratic side. So there is no corrupt racist bully on the Democratic side. So I think we're going to be okay. And I trust the American people. Look, we have on the Democratic side the ability to bring in millions of new people into the process. And so the more candidates that are out there that are making the case, the more people we're bringing in. And I think that that's good for democracy.
Brad and Reena and Patty, we want to get through these 10 declared candidates. Let's see if we can do it in one show. That's quite a mission. Best coming out declaration, Reena. Who struck you? What was the one where you thought?
Klobuchar, of course. She's standing there with snow, all over her. That's bravery right there, number one. Because I've worked for candidates who were sort of like the weather. No, if it's bad, we're going indoors. And so I think she just wanted to show that she's tough. And, that's really it. She doesn't really have the Minnesota nice that we hear about. That's actually a phrase in the U.S. that we hear a lot. And I like Minnesota Republicans, to be honest. They're very independent. Will they cross over for Klobuchar? That's a very real scenario, I think.
I think we should also put a pause on that all of these articles have been about how Amy Klobuchar is not nice to her staff. Not one article like that has ever been written about a male candidate.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate how they're eviscerating her for eating a salad with a comb. Like, look, get creative. I think that's kind of fun.
So in a sentence, Amy Klobuchar, you get what?
Centrist Democrat.
Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
From the Midwest.
Malika.
So this is a name in our rapid fire here that is one most of our audience will be familiar with. This person writes in, this is Happy Arab. He says, my personal preference is Senator Bernie Sanders. He has demonstrated his ability to connect with millions of Americans on the issues. He's the most electable candidate and the one who can beat Trump. He's not the only one who says it. Ms. Alexander says, I believe Senator Sanders' platform is far more representative of my values than other candidates in the Democratic field. Any surprise, Patty, that Senator Sanders has thrown his hat back in the ring?
Right now, it's all about name recognition, and that's why you see Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders polling at 1 and 2. The difference for Sanders here is this is in 2016. He's not just running against Hillary Clinton, which was as far from a progressive Democrat as you can get and still be a Democrat. He's going to be running against 5 or 6 other really, truly progressive people who aren't 70-something years old and scream all the time. So this is going to be a much different election for him.
So I think you're onto something there with the sort of name recognition, but with Biden, I think Biden and Bernie are two very different people. They're just extremely different. Despite the name ID, you're getting a feel-good person with Biden. With Bernie, you know what you're getting. You're getting somebody who's loud and angry and sort of a crazy
just
weekend at Bernie's.
Yells at you all the time.
Yeah, he's like always.
Brad?
The thing about Bernie Sanders that people aren't realizing, he had a monstrous first week. He had $11 million in donations. 40% of those donations were people who have never given to Bernie Sanders before.
What does that mean? What does that mean for countries that don't have to have that much money behind potential candidates? What does that mean that he raised that much money that quickly?
It's an incredible amount. It's pretty close to a record, I believe. I mean, most candidates on their quarter-end filings, they're hoping for a couple $1 million in the bank. Bernie's crushing through those expectations. So, I think that he's going to have a very broad level of support. He's going to have a lot of support from young people. And yes, there were millions of people that knocked on doors and supported Bernie Sanders in that 2016 primary who were just as fired up today as they were back in 2016.
Let's move on.
And to Pat's point, I think on the idea of there's only just Bernie and the rest of the field, that actually makes it a lot more compelling for Bernie. Because he is someone who has such a broad level of support. When you have 15 other candidates going for a very specific voter, that kind of opens the field for Bernie Sanders in the primary.
Let's move on and introduce you, if you don't know who she is, to another candidate. Lots of biographies going on with these declarations for I'm running for president. Here's another one. Have a look.
I was born in Oakland. My parents met as students at the University of California, where they were active in the civil rights movement. My mother was one of the greatest sources of inspiration in my life. She was a scientist and an activist. I was taught that I had a responsibility to be a part of the fight for justice, and that's what I've done my whole life.
Patty, Kamala Harris.
Senator of California, centrist, was a former attorney general of the state, and so her record's already being torn apart, but she had a really smooth rollout so far.
I think this is an example where somebody can be a great senator for their state and just not perhaps have national appeal. There's definitely been a clapback on that, though, with her going to Charleston, South Carolina, and people saying, look at the crowd she garnered there. And I just think it's sort of a one-off. I just don't see her having the endurance to really stay the course and punch back at Trump the way that is necessary.
I have to disagree with you.
Yeah.
I've watched her in Senate hearings. She has the best face when someone tries to mansplain to her on the planet.
And faces are fine,
no,
but
she's,
really,
she's wicked smart, and I think
I'll
she's
give her
garnered
that.
a lot of attention. I wouldn't write her off.
That's
Especially because, remember, we're not just talking about presidents. One of these people who's running for president, probably a few of them don't think they're actually going to be president. They want to be vice president.
Oh.
They want to be able to bring that to the ticket.
Yeah. Fair.
I think, look, Kamala not only had 20,000 people at her rally in Oakland, but she really has taken the infrastructure from the Hillary Clinton campaign. Her campaign staff, a lot of her bundlers, and the infrastructure at the state level in places like Iowa and South Carolina and New Hampshire. So she, in many ways, she has a lot of the groundwork that's laid for her. That's why her name ID is so high. I think she is as great of a shot as anyone. She has crossover appeal. Although she is from San Francisco, I think she's going to resonate in some of these early states like South Carolina, Nevada, and California is now an early state. It's been pushed up. So California actually becomes a much more important state in the long slog that will be the primary.
So I hear you there, Brad. But Patty, you mentioned vice presidents, and Rena, you mentioned some of the clapback that Kamala received. I have a tweet here that links those two things. So this is Pranav, who says, Joe Biden, former vice president of the U.S., drafted the 1994 crime bill, which imposed mandatory minimum sentences on drug offenders. Bernie signed on to it. Kamala Harris was a prosecutor who sent people to jail for possession. So that's what they think of some of those potential candidates. Cory Booker is a new name we haven't heard today, has advocated legalization and expungement, which is the best idea. So let's shift on over to Cory Booker. Brad, what's your take on the New Jersey senator?
Well, as you can tell, I like all these candidates. I'm from Jersey, so I've known Mayor Booker and Senator Booker for many years. Look, I think he's compelling. I think he's a guy who, if you notice the way he's talking about this campaign, it's very reminiscent of Obama. He's talking about bringing the country together. He's talking about leading with love. He's not writing anyone off, right? He's trying to reach as many people as possible. I think it's going to be a challenge. Cory is going to have the same challenge that Kamala and many of these newcomer candidates have, which is they don't have a ton of a track record. And so, you know, a lot of people are going to want to know, what is your policy platform? What record do you have to show for in Newark or in New Jersey? But I think in terms of his rhetoric, in terms of his oratory skills, my wife went to an event with Cory last week, and she was crying.
Oh.
So that's how captivating
All
Cory
right.
is.
Let's see him on video.
Very, very charismatic, but we'll see.
All right, let's have a look.
Where our criminal justice system keeps us safe instead of shuffling more children into cages and coffins. Where we see the faces of our leaders on television and feel pride, not shame. It is not a matter of can we. It's a matter of do we have the collective will, the American will. I believe we do.
Cory Booker is incredibly good on television. He comes across, and that's one of the problems some of these candidates have, Elizabeth Warren to name one. His little problem, and it's old-fashioned, but he's not married.
But he apparently
has a girlfriend.
Has a girlfriend.
Okay, not married. It's America.
Yeah,
We've
the
never
family
had
thing is really big
You have
for
to be married.
candidates.
So should we just cross a lot of people off if they're not married?
I mean, I don't think we cross them off. I think it's just a tougher,
never
more
happened.
uphill battle for them, right?
I mean,
when you don't have a family to talk about, like, okay, my wife's gone through this, my kids, you know, that's kind of stuff. And Cory,
That's how
to
he
me,
relates.
I personally like him. When he came on the scene, I was like, wow, that energy, you know? And I think Brad mentioned something earlier, the crossover appeal, right? Somebody who has that is so necessary in this moment to take on Trump, to take on the people that are annoyed and just disenfranchised by Trump's presidency. There's a lot of us out there, and a lot meaning me. Like, I'm one of the Republicans from the beginning that had a problem with him.
I'm not saying that it's bad that he's not married. I'm saying that in politics it can be
No,
bad.
no, you made that
Think
very
about
clear.
Michelle
problematic.
Obama, what
Yeah.
a surrogate she was for her husband. She's more popular than he was.
Yeah.
And she was able to go to Iowa when he
Look.
went to South Carolina and cover more ground
Look,
that way.
we have a president. We have a president who is sleeping with porn stars, right? I mean, I think the fact that
Not
Cory
currently,
doesn't
though.
have a wife.
God.
don't know that.
We live in an alternate universe right now with Donald Trump as president. So anything that was, you know, I agree with you. Maybe 8 years ago, I think that that's the case, but I don't think people are going to
Anything
disqualify
goes
Cory
now.
Booker just because he
Perhaps.
doesn't have a wife.
Does it anything go now, or does it whip back
The other way?
But
Because
Cory
we
Booker,
don't
during
know.
the Kavanaugh confirmation, that was a problem. The right just didn't like his behavior, the I am Spartacus moment, like all this stuff. It's just, I think it's still a bit problematic for him moving
I'm
forward.
going to throw another name in here because there's so many we've mentioned. This is Finch, who says Elizabeth Warren, who is married for our audience, will win this with ease. She is the best candidate, and even real Donald Trump doesn't stand a chance against her. Elizabeth Warren for 2020. No. Okay, Patty, why?
She has an issue right out of the gate because she came out and she said throughout her whole life growing up in Oklahoma that she was of Native American heritage. She had this disastrous rollout where she did the whole ancestry DNA thing and had like practically none. And then it took her like 3 months or 4 months to come out and apologize to the Cherokee Nation. And so she's been labeled Pocahontas. A lot of people are going to see.
Pocahontas is what Trump calls it, right?
Like a lot of people are going to see in her some of the same characteristics that they didn't like in Hillary Clinton. And she is incredibly progressive. We don't know where their party's going to try and go to. If they're going to go real left, or if they're going to try and find someone in the center with the goal of beating Trump. If it's Trump, let's not forget, it might not be Trump.
Ooh. Okay, the thing about Elizabeth Warren is that she has said that the way she's funding her campaign is going to be different. How important is money in this campaign? Let's have a look at what Elizabeth Warren is saying. Have a look.
We also need to end the unwritten rule of politics that says that anyone who wants to run for office has to start by sucking up to a bunch of rich donors on Wall Street and powerful insiders in Washington. So I'm opting out of that rule. I'm not taking a dime of PAC money in this campaign.
Is that even possible?
No, it's not.
Right.
Not with where we currently are. It just isn't. The influence of money is too great. You need the money, the type of money that Bernie raised very quickly to run ads, to have a successful ground game. And frankly, if you ask me, I think Elizabeth Warren is running because she's kind of had to. Everything she's done up until now in her political career at the federal level has sort of signaled this. And I think she understands. She's already sort of read the tea leaves and realized that this is not really hers to win, but she's doing it, and she's kind of doing it in a principled way. She didn't redeem herself from the Native American ties. It's a bit problematic at this point, her rollout and more.
I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think you can win a primary without corporate money.
Sure.
And then you get around that in the general by having corporate money go to the Democratic Party who spends it on your behalf.
But with a field this wide,
Yeah,
I don't know, Brad, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with that assessment. Look, Bernie Sanders outraised Hillary Clinton by small dollar donations. Hillary had all of the big donors and Bernie had all of the people. There are more people than there are big donors. And I think, a tip of the hat to Elizabeth Warren and her team for doing this. I think, to be candid, I don't think she's going to be getting that much money from big dollar donors to begin with. She's been a critic and she's been really out there on taxing the rich. So I think that tactically it's smart. Why are we going to waste dialing for these big dollars if we're not going to get it? But I do think it's important. I think it's important for candidates to stand for the people as opposed to corporations. And I think it's resonating. Her donations are looking good. Her endorsements look great. Her poll numbers could be a little bit better. But I think, we haven't gotten to that point where we're in debates. And I do think Elizabeth Warren is a great debater. She's a great litigator. And I think she's been running on these issues for years. She created the CFPB. She's been talking about Wall Street as an academic and as a professor for decades. So she really wrote the playbook in many ways of what is animating AOC and the Justice Democrats. So I think she will resonate. I think it just depends on, how much she resonates. I mean, that's the question with all of these candidates is how do they break through to that level where that 15% delegate math threshold in Iowa, that's what everyone is going after.
Let me bring Republicans into this conversation. We've been talking about Democratic candidates who are planning to run for president. One more, I'm just going to squeeze in here via President Trump. Here's what he's saying about who could possibly beat him.
The only thing I worry about is that some total unknown that nobody ever heard of comes along.
Then there's Andrew Yang.
Andrew Yang, entrepreneur and author of The War on Normal People.
Andrew, you're running for president.
Yes, I am. So we're in the third or fourth inning of the greatest technological and economic shift in human history.
He's looking at what's happening.
So that's Andrew Yang, putting together clips about Andrew Yang, saying I am running for president. But in reality, who can possibly beat President Trump? Are any Republicans saying, I'm actually going to run against the president?
Yeah, not yet. It's not been formally declared, but we've heard a lot from Governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, a lot of rumors, rather, emanating from that governor's mansion because he's so well liked. He and Charlie Baker of Massachusetts are amongst the two most liked governors in the entire country. Hogan has done that with a serious bipartisan love, I think. He really garners attention from both sides of the aisle. People like him for the state. However, never, and he's been anti-Trump all along. He has never embraced the president fully. So does that mean he can really get the vote of Republican primary voters? I don't think he can. I think Republican primary voters are going to be very loyal to Trump unless there is a large-scale terror attack or the economy tanks.
Actually, I think if there was a terror attack, it would probably work in his favor. People tend to rally around the president during one of those things. But I really think we cannot, and this is a mistake I think the Democrats are making right now. They're assuming they're going to run against Trump. So everyone keeps talking about who could beat Trump. The question they have to be asking is who could beat Trump, who could beat Governor Kasich from Ohio, former governor, who could beat Governor Hogan, who, let's face it, you're not the governor of Maryland and you go to Iowa because they're not eating a whole lot of Maryland crabs in Iowa and New Hampshire. So Hogan is seriously considering it. He's hugely popular as a Republican in a Democratic state. But we don't know that Trump's going to be the nominee. This is a man under investigation from literally everywhere. It's in the Congress, it's in the courts, it's in New York, it's in Mueller, everywhere. We don't know what's coming out. We've just now seen Cohen, his former attorney, Michael Cohen, do his first day of congressional testimony, and it was devastating for this president. He went through about 6 different felony offenses that the president might have committed. So we don't know where any of these investigations end up. And the big thing is the economy. Every economist across the board will tell you this has gone on too long. The economy is going to tank, definitely in 2019, or most likely 2019, but definitely in 2020. People vote with their wallets.
So I wanted to bring this up because you said we may not be, this conversation moving forward may not be a race against Trump. This person on Twitter, this is John, who says at this point, there are no Democrats strong enough to defeat the president. So he's still thinking in the mind of running against Trump. He says, though a year in politics is 5 lifetimes. So that is important for us to remember. But pushing forward just a little bit into what the issues are that we're going to discuss. This is a comment we got from Richard, a member of our community in Portugal. And here's what he says.
There are very few progressive Democrats in office, and the handful who are progressive are actually suppressed by the Democratic National Committee machine that values status quo establishment over progressive social objectives. The establishment Democrats feed from the same trough as the Republicans, Big Pharma, Defense, Goldman Sachs, Wall Street, and with the exception of Trump's madness, the establishment Democrats' bottom line is virtually identical to the Republicans. Nothing will change until people rise up on the streets, like the Yellow Vests in France, and elect many more AOCs who are serious about change.
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure, but I just wanted to note for our audience, of course, AOC, if you're not following the news, is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Go ahead, Patty.
The youngest congresswoman ever elected to Congress and was really brilliant in the Cohen testimony. What that person said about no one can beat Trump, at this point, if the economy tanks with his numbers, yes, he's probably going to win the primary. He's got 78% approval with Republicans. He has dismal approval with the entire rest of the country, and Republicans make up 28% of the electorate. My cat at this point, if nothing changed, could be Trump. And my cat kind of is annoying.
Is it a cute cat?
No, he cries all the time for food, tries to wake me up. Sometimes it pees at my house.
All right, speed. This is the speed section. One issue that you think is going to be a dominant issue that people will vote on in 2020?
It'll still be immigration to a large extent, I believe.
Patty?
Yeah.
No, it won't be immigration. It's what Republicans were going to vote on because they're going to make everyone afraid. It's going to be healthcare.
Brad, what will it be? The biggest issue for 2020 people will be voting on? Brad.
Yeah, I think it's going to be money in politics, to be honest. I think that's what animates a lot of the anger. It's money in politics and corruption. I think Donald Trump has so disintegrated all of our institutions that we're going to look for someone to bring us back.
Malika.
This is Pranav, and he wants it to be criminal justice reform and the tough on crime policies that some of these candidates are complicit in.
All right, because you're all so great together, we're going to put up our 10 declared candidates. There are a couple that we haven't mentioned yet, and you will, in a line, explain who they are. Pete Buttigieg. That was hard because we didn't even know how to say his name. Who is he?
Young, charismatic mayor of Indianapolis, very young, openly gay, doesn't have even the slightest chance.
Fascinating. Julian Castro.
You know, we were just debating which Castro brother this is. Brad, how about you?
Julian Castro. Who is he? Brad. Can Brad hear us? There's a long delay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. John Delaney.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can, Brett.
Castro is, we believe, the HUD secretary, but his brothers, the twin brothers in Congress, and this is how little known he is. I couldn't remember just now. I know I know it, I just can't remember it.
You will get to know them better over the next
year.
I hope not.
And a bit.
I really hope not.
John Delaney is the Democratic congressman from Maryland who announced he was running for president like when I was a teenager.
This is why she's an Al Jazeera star correspondent. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Rena. Thank you, Brad, as well. One more thing to show you. Look here. I have a countdown clock to the 2020 US presidential election. This is where we are. Just a mere 600 and something more days to go. Almost there. Thanks for watching. See you next time.